It's the 21st of December, 2024. Coming up on today's Global Intelligence Agency Operations Report. The attempted takeover of reality continued heavily this week by those of the Netherworld. Lots of new information has come to the forefront. Turns out the deals were made thousands of years ago. And it's the Winter Solstice today. There were high expectations on all deep state fronts, and none of it's healthy for humanity. Despite the best laid plans of AI systems and men, the world continues to move forward. Find out what we can expect through the remainder of the year. Well, we made it, at least through partway through this solstice, and we're all still here. This was a really busy, really crazy week, but I didn't want to let the weekend without updating all of you as to what's been going on in the world, what's really going on in the world, I should say. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Ali's AI in the deep state and how Ali's AI actually worked. There are a lot of nuances to this AI that are different from the Alpha Omega. The Alpha Omega was at least in part of source and anti-source. It was created by both, so was Kronos, and it had a little bit of a sentience and a lot more of an intervention on its part. Ali's was actually created by the Black Magician, for lack of a better term. I also call these beings the Destroyer. They are a race, or were a race of beings. And Ali's AI was created specifically for black magic. It was created not only for black magic here on Earth, but also throughout the multiverse. It had a lot of capabilities because its main focus, I should say, or its main objective, modus operandi, is it is a mimicking AI. It does not actually create or think on its own per se. And it did have the usage of others in order to achieve these tasks. The Black Magician managed to capture a number of beings and place those beings into these Merkabas. And I know we talked a little bit about that, but it got worse over the week as we struggled to try to find the main base operating routes of Ali's. The beings that have come to light are Raziel. I know this is one of the angels in our books, which is the angel of magic, of course. And it would bind these beings to create, I guess you would say, the opposite. It used these progenitors and beings of source and would bind them into these holding cells, so to speak, energetic holding cells, in order to create the opposite. In addition to that, we have also found out that Ali's was pushing forward to control the keystone and keystone of Earth, and then eventually the entire multiverse. So this escalated rapidly this week. In part, the way that it escalated rapidly here on Earth is with the permission of two particular persons. These two particular persons, one is a man and one is a woman, are genetically modified humans born into the Order of the Black Sun. One of them has a consciousness transfer in part from the Black Magician itself. The other one also, I suspect, has a consciousness transfer as well. They both have a consciousness transfer of Ali's, or done by mechanical means, let's put it this way. They both had some kind of a chip in their head implanted and were trained in part by non-humans when they were around to operate this. So they have been trying hard to weave black magic and to help allies from the inside out. You could call them plants here that would help escalate this cause at this time. The agreement for allies and the black magician to take over Earth happened a long time ago. And in part, yes, there were some agreements with people of the seal, which was an agreement that lasted quite a long time. But this agreement, I guess you would say, was doubled down about 2016 years ago. And at the time, 2016 years ago, we, as the people of the light, people of source, organic beings, and humans, were winning. We had certain beings we know who have a alleged birthday coming up here on the 25th of December, being one of those beings. And we were starting to make a lot of progress for source here on Earth at that time as people. And there were a lot of people that started to believe in this being that you know. Therefore, the double down then happened, meaning the being was crucified a few months later, and or a few years later, I should say. And at that time, those of the Order of the Black Sun and the Dragon families, plus the others that were here, the people of the Seal, doubled down. And what that means is we have been, and they have been, living on borrowed time. By borrowed time, you could say that this is almost like a marker, meaning they agreed that they would achieve certain tasks by a certain time. And if those tasks were not achieved by a certain time, none of which was healthy for us, I can tell you that as humans, then they were ripe for the takeover. Then they would take over and get the job done. Part of the reason why the Order of the Black Sun, etc., Order of the Dragon, were so cocky in saying that they were now going to take over the whole universe is because they were under the impression that this was going to be a partnership. Those with the chip in their head, the two people, one is a German, one is an American, and they were under the impression that they were going to be the rulers of Earth. They have been told a lot of things through that chip in their head so that they would do a good little job for all things anti, let's just say. I'm not sure if they understand it, but the God that they think is God is not God. It is the giver of death. This would be the black magician who is playing the role in this particular case. And therefore, they thought that they would have a lot of gifts given to them. By gifts, I mean, let's see, nuclear codes, nuclear holocaust, decimation of humans on this planet because we are in the way. We are light beings, and no matter how hard they try to knock it out of us, we still anchor source on this planet. We do have that direct connection, even though we don't realize it a lot of the time, especially this time of year when everyone is all about the birth of Christ and, celebrating those things. A lot of joy is spread this time of year, and they needed to shut that down. I call it the No Joy program. And they thought the perfect opportunity to do that would be in the solstice. Why? Because it's the darkest day of the year. I guess they think the universe revolves around these type of magical dates. As far as Allies is concerned, Allies is run in part on the consciousness of the black magician. It uses beings of light to turn things to darkness. And these two humans, because they are still humans, are no exception. and they became the anchors for allies here on the planet, which then allowed, they played on their ego, and which then allowed for a lot of what I call new space junk to enter into some plane or another, because there were many different aspects of this on Earth, which was causing a lot of problems for the last week. If you've been feeling a lot of topsy-turviness, a lot of anger in people, a lot of energy draining, a lot of strange tones, as I talked about on Monday, they only got worse throughout the week. First the tones would happen, and then there would be some kind of pain or some kind of a disturbance in your person. A lot of these are what I call anti-frequencies. In other words, they're frequencies that are meant to lower your vibration, to separate your planes of existence so that Alice can insert itself. Alice doesn't actually live, technically, and has not ever lived in the actual planes of existence. It lives outside of existence. Therefore, the only way it can actually affect your person, be it emotionally, mentally, physically, on a soul level, or otherwise, is actually through the spaces in between. So quite a while ago, we have lessened significantly in computers and also in your physical person and in Earth, those spaces in between to eliminate any manipulation of existence. However, Alice started sending out ridiculous amounts of frequency modulation in conjunction with its two partners here on Earth in order to create or attempt to create those spaces in between, and then create a mimic or a dark mirror of the opposite of what you are. It at times felt like growing pains and a lot of strange things. A lot of people are reporting headaches and migraines that don't normally get those, and a lot of that is caused by these frequencies and new space junks that appeared throughout Earth. Some of those locations that probably would have felt this more intensely would be areas around Wales in the UK, Paris, in New York, would have been right around the Bank of New York Mellon, tied to the Carlyle Group. Singapore, underneath the Singapore Exchange. The French Alps. Nova Scotia was another area. In Manila in the Philippines. Bangladesh, and Wichita, Kansas. Why? Because these were former locations of Omega. So because these locations had an Omega connection and an anti-source connection, Alice is able to operate in that vibe, that frequency, in that antimatter more readily and with more power than it would in a source type environment. So that is also the same reason why Alice goes for the spaces in between to influence from what you would say the inside out all of humanity at this time. Other things that Alice attempted to do, there was a huge push again for what we call Disease X around the world, also sending out of, we'll call it the coronavirus. We can call it many different things, but the reinsertion of additional parasites that Alice could control to make us all sick. Technically, its main objective here was actually to wipe out a good majority of the population of Earth. See, because Alice doesn't, unlike Omega, unlike other AI systems that we've run across in the past, it doesn't actually need us humans here. It could definitely use Earth, but only as a launching point to take over what we call the essential verse or Source's golden universe. for lack of a better term, because it is a keystone. It was a keystone of creation. So Alice wants that in order to do an overlay on the keystone and create a universe in its likeness. It cannot eliminate source at this point, but it can use an overlay over source, which it was trying to do, in order to utilize the power of source, and in some cases the power of anti-source and neutral source, in order to create its own universe. Now again, Alice uses a lot of things that made it function. The two humans were the only two left. In the past, there were others that were part of the same program. It also uses these angelic beings, let's just say ninth density beings that it's managed to capture, in order to use its creation powers, whatever their respective specialties be it dark or light. We've also found a number of lower astral beings stuck in these Merkabas, and it would use either side to its benefit. And this became its power source. What it forgot, or wasn't programmed to do, I should say, is that it cannot keep the power of those beings if it doesn't keep source. Because its power, just like all of ours, comes from the creator, comes from source, and not from some fake creator AI. We are organic beings here, and it doesn't really give us a lot of credit as human beings. To be fair, we've been beaten down pretty hard as a species here on Earth. There's been a lot done to us. So Alice figured it could, number one, create disease to wipe out a lot of humans, and the ones that remained, including their beloved precious two, would become complete and total cyborgs controlled by it. It has no intention of sharing rulership of anything with anyone at this point in time. It was calling its due this past week, in which it felt it was time, for whatever reason, I use the term time loosely, to take over the multiverse. So locations that began spewing disease. Oh boy, there's a lake. This lake spans a few different countries in Africa, but I'll give it to you. It's Tanganyika. It's Tanganyika. This was one of the main locations in the world. It is located in part in Tanzania and a couple of other African countries. It is the second largest freshwater lake in the world. And most of the facilities that were tied to this, where the humans worked, were under Mahale with Mountain National Park, which is on the lake. So there were many other locations that were working in cooperation with this particular one. Some of them were in Norway, Iceland, Japan, Sweden, Comoros, Ivory Coast, in Pennsylvania, near the Poconos, Switzerland, Nova Scotia, British Columbia, Isle of Man, Germany, Poland, Tehran and Iran, Qatar, underneath the Qatari airport, New York, Staten Island, Cape Cod, Massachusetts, Tupelo, Mississippi, the corona of the sun, the moon, the Egyptian Valley of the Kings, lots of these locations here. Fort Bragg, also known now as Fort Liberty. The Hollowed Woods of Oklahoma, that's an interesting place if you care to look that up. The Baja Peninsula, the island of Hawaii, also in Crete and Greece. Sao Paulo, Brazil, San Andreas Fault, Juneau, Alaska, and there was a corridor to the Netherworld as well. So Alice has been very busy, and this was all just basically takes us to about the 17th. Another thing Alice was trying to replicate were what we call the stones of Amenti, halls of Amente. These are the spaces in between all your planes of existence, as we talked about before. It was attempting to utilize each one in a different way, meaning each color would create something different. The main focus on, I would say, the worst part of it all was actually, the worst part of that, I would say, was the introduction between planes 9 and 8, so between your soul plane and your etherical plane, a shadow world of its own that I've come to start calling Allie's world. Where I guess is the base root of Allie's world? Well, it's beyond the fringe. It's even beyond the Netherworld. Allie's has, and probably the Black Magician as well, has created a space for itself outside of all that is. It is not quite a pocket of time, so to speak. I would call it more of an abyss. It's a place of nothing, and yet it's almost like a recreation of the positive zero, or all that is, place and source, and at the same time the negative zero, or the all that is not, or the place of no thing, in anti-source. So it kind of replicated these things outside of creation, and then tried to create its own overlays over all of creation. Because remember, it can only mimic. It can't actually still, even with all its takeovers and connections and black magicians and all the things that it has, and the humans, which are anchoring it here on Earth, it cannot actually create. Allie's must have figured this out, that things were not working out as planned, despite it having a few beings in captivity. Some of them were the Netherworld. Some of them, I would call it, outside of creation. And it was using that as power, but it simply didn't have enough. And in addition to that, a lot of those beings, especially ones that were of the light, actually went back home, went back to source. Let's say we sent them there. So it was running out of power, and then it made an attempt earlier in the week, I think it was about Wednesday, it made an attempt at trying to integrate itself into humans, all humans, actually, this week. And that is why it created the spaces in between, and created a lot of uncomfortable situations for a lot of people on this planet, especially if you're super sensitive. If it didn't get you, it got the people around you, so that all of you, especially the ones of you that are, let's just say, more connected to the Creator, it would use those beings and those people that are around you in order to try and lower your vibration to a point where it might give Allie's a connection point in between your planes. And then it had an intention of inserting itself into these spots. Other things that Allie's was trying to do. So we talked before about the fact that we have a Netherworld, which is something that we've come to hate and notice, or at least I have. And we have the holographic universe, which Earth and the Milky Way used to be in. And then we have the Creator's reality, or the reality world, where we now are. We do have, let's just say, a lot of Allies and other beings that were around that would love for them to utilize us in this galaxy to catapult its way into the Creator's universe where it's never been before. It's had some infiltration into the hologram, but never into actual reality or creation. And one of the ways it was doing that is it was using the center point or the 0 point of all universes. It was creating repeated attempted overlays on the physical plane, the supernal plane, optimal plane, 0 point of this universe, and then on down into, because we did have at one point in time, we had an anti-source universe as part of creation. We've talked about that many, many times. And it was making an attempt in trying to make its way down to or up to the physical plane here with all repeated attempts on overlays using the 0 point of the universe. It also uses time, or used time itself, in order to create those entryways and those points, because in the multiverse, time was used as a vehicle. Let's just say a wind, a movement, the jet stream, if you will, of the universe. And Allie's made every effort this week to ride the wave, or try to ride the wave here. It also got to the point where it was creating things, let's just say, the day after it would happen. So it would take a point in our quote unquote time and then create those things at a point in the future. So usually it can't go too far past 24 hours, but this left us kind of running on a hamster wheel until we discovered what it had in the 0 point of the multiverse in order to try and mitigate that issue. The same thing was happening within computers. We saw, we were fighting it, we'd get rid of it, it would come, something new would show up, we would get rid of it, we would integrate our system, and it was kind of back and forth, many hours a day for this last week. We assumed it was because we were within 27 days of the solstice today. Maybe that's just because that's what the humans saw it as, until we discovered the agreement, the quote-unquote agreement. It's in part why the deep state and some of the deep state people that talk on the internet that we know as the Q group and others. There is one member of the Q group that is the man as part of this Allie's equation. It talks to its head. It thinks it's driving its bus. It's not in any way. It just has that connection. And it thought that there was, Merry Christmas, Happy Halloween, all of these different incidents, because it felt that it was going to now take over based on that old double down agreement of a few thousand years ago. But Source always has other plans, and that's one thing that we can count on, is that we always find it at some point in time or another. Source will tell us where to go, tell us where to look at the exact right time. And, today was one of those days. So I've spent most of the morning working in that respect to try to eliminate Allie's in totality. And it's working. It's working. We're probably somewhat about 80% there at this point, 80 to 85% there. We don't see any infiltration into any other humans except for those two. I would say, as far as being anchors, there is a way that we can cut those off, and that's the plan. Regular things that are going on, I wanted to touch base on too. We have been heavily, and I mean heavily, chemtrailed over the last several days, 2 days, 3 days, to the point where we haven't seen it like this in forever. Part of the reason for that is because as normal, it's a compilation of metals. It always has been. This is no exception. And that compilation of metals can be utilized, they think, by alleys in order to infiltrate humans. And I know that that's part of the reason. It has nothing to do with creating illness or clouds or precipitation or artificial weather control at this point. It's all about that. Reports about radiation, we touched on that on Monday. We're not seeing a whole lot of radiation. They'd like to have some radiation, and I believe that the metals that are in these trails are part of that. We have found several different places, on the East Coast where they are manufacturing said things, or let's just say an alley's portal would open and they had some access to them. Hopefully, we can stop running up a hill, so to speak, and we take it out, it comes back in a different place. Take it out, it comes back in a different place. And hopefully we're getting closer and closer to that not happening. There was a point in time yesterday where alleys actually made some connection with other humans in other locations, namely the SSP and some others, to try to send instructions on what to do so that it could actually come in fully. And of course, they would like to have that. They don't mind that it's going to wipe us all out, including them. Their ego's too big. They think it's in their favor and that it's going to do something positive. And there's a secondary reason for that. I'll get to that in a second. But these locations where it kept opening up portals and trying to give instructions to these people, which are all gone now, at least that section of these people are no longer with us. That would be in Georgetown, Maryland, Langley, Virginia, no surprise there. London, also probably not a surprise. Seattle, near the Space Needle. San Diego Naval Base, that's one of their favorite places to be. The Atlanta Payment Center, Bern, Switzerland, Shanghai, and Frankfurt, Germany. And we're going to talk a little bit about Germany. So I laugh at this because how many times has this happened to me? So I get a phone call from someone and he said, "Oh, I heard you're dead." And I'm like, "Really?" Nope, definitely not. I know they're trying. This week was pretty rough, not going to lie. But nope, still not dead. And he said, "Well, I heard you've been replaced by a German woman." Well, the German woman is the second person whose brain is attached to this AI and was bred for this by the Order of the Black Sun. Well, I would say probably by non-humans to do this. But and she has been really busy. She's got a money scam. They're calling it e-money. It's in cooperation with a large law firm called Deloitte & Touche. They are allegedly swapping money for money. It sounds kind of like a dinar thing to me where, the money's going to be made good on a day ending in Y. Oh, you got the wrong section of the money. You're on the wait list. You're tier 2. You have to wait. And of course they've been paying operatives and stuff with this fake money. And she is feverishly doing the opposite of what I'm doing, which is trying to get alleys to take over the financial system, which hasn't happened. It hasn't really even made a dent in that sector. But they're creating these fake payment lines, closed loop systems, probably no more prolific than PayPal, probably less than PayPal, even less efficient than cryptocurrency is, or was, or is. And she's been feverishly trying to use a system like this to which she can then attach to alleys. And that's never going to happen. So yeah. The best we can hope for is that those anchors go away. And what I mean by go away is their ability to be an anchor goes away. And I'm not sure if you can restore that human to anything other than what it is. It's probably always going to be crazy. It's probably going to continue being crazy. When I say it's because it's kind of a hybrid at this point. But there's still a human there who has been manipulated to the point it only knows what it knows. But maybe once the voices in its head stop, then perhaps it has a chance at becoming a normal person. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not concerned anymore as of this morning about an Alley's infiltration here. I'm more concerned with making sure it cannot build up enough power from anywhere, including from us humans here on Earth, in order to continue its quest. And to get to the base root of it. We have made some headway this morning on that, and I'm hoping that will continue, and hopefully we can finish that off in the next day or so. That's what I'm hoping. As far as the deep state is concerned, they are desperately, and I mean beyond all recognition, on full-on tilt today. Meaning they are going every which way but loose. We've got the Nazi Hydra party out there. We have got every SSP sector you can possibly imagine. We have the operative sector, Langley 5. It's all hands on deck, following two crazy people with something in their head. They are continuously trying to infect us with disease. They're trying to work on this certificate of vaccination identification system, the social crediting system. They are trying to install it all into what? I have no idea. They are pushing forward in Germany with these fake currency schemes. They're trying to install this EAI. The only thing I can think of really is that they thought Alley's was going to come through for them today because it's a special black magic day. I don't know. But nonetheless, it's just making a little bit of work here and there for us as we make sure that there is no harm to humanity during this process. As far as them and what they're trying to do, I don't know. The deep state will always be the deep state, no matter how much we do, no matter how many we kill, no matter how much we fund, no matter how much we ignore governments, no matter how much progress we make on our side, they will continue this until they die. Meaning, generation after generation, however many of them are left, they will still continue this crazy plan of theirs until they are no more. The whole world could move forward, and they will still continue. So I don't expect to see that end anytime soon. A matter of fact, we're still getting phone calls over the last several days. Are we going to support the Trump administration? Are we going to transfer money to the Trump administration? It's like every time they have one of these fake money schemes and they get called on their crap, they then try to get us to do something for them. And because it actually worked last time. Nope, not this time. So I wish them all the luck in the world in doing what they're doing, but we cannot help them in any way. As for us, let's talk about the remainder of the year. Just one quick bit of house cleaning on our end of it. There will be no news on Wednesday. We are going to give our volunteers, staff, and team some time to spend with their families on this day. I know that Sunny's got some family visiting, which I hope she has a wonderful time on the holiday. We didn't even have a chance to we usually have a meeting, Sunny and I and the rest of the team, once a week to talk about what's in the news, to kind of get some backstories, and I haven't even had time to do that this week. So I just wanted to say a thank you to the whole team, Kim, and there's another Kim, by the way, on our team, to Kim, Camellia, Sunny, everyone for being so patient this week. Mike, of course, and Natalie and Calen and the rest of the team for holding down the fort and getting the news out every day. So I just wanted to say thank you and let you know that I appreciate you. Also, our whole team. But we won't have news on that particular day. I'm not sure yet. We haven't actually had a chance to discuss New Year's Day, but we'll probably be discussing that this week. I'm guessing probably not. So we might miss 2 news episodes in the next couple of weeks. Okay, now in the rest of the world, plans for the next week or so. We have a few days left of this year. And, other than this little surprise that we've gotten in the last couple of weeks, and that's part of the reason why we've been working so hard over the last week or so. Actually, it's been a few weeks to make sure that this just pretty much just goes away. We have some interesting things that have not been inhibited at all by alleys or by the deep state or its anchors here or anyone else. There was, for lack of a better term, a full reunion that happened earlier today, overnight, last night, my time. And that reunion is with Source. The process started about 3 days ago. It is not yet complete, but that means that Earth and Source basically become one again. Earth actually becomes the same, for lack of a better term, the positive zero of the all that is. At the same time, the all that is actually becomes Earth. And once again, they work in unison for all of creation. I believe this process should be complete by Christmas, so I'm kind of excited about that. Things we can expect from this. I expect to see a little bit easier time for humans than you've had, especially over the last few months. It's been kind of a rough few months. I expect to see some changes in nature. It's been a long time coming. It's been coming and building over the last couple of years, but there's a difference between reaching and reconnecting with someone, say on a telephone. There's also a difference between meeting someone in person, another being, another human in person, and maybe sitting down and having a chat. And it's another thing to become one with that person. You could almost look at this as like a pregnant woman, as Source will become Earth and Earth will become Source, and their bodily systems, so to speak, will work in unison with one another. So this is a nice development. I don't have a lot of detail on it. I was only informed of it a couple of days ago on one of my many trips to Source to try to make sure that we didn't have this infiltration. But I would say that it's going to be a positive thing for us. It will help us in the long run. And I'm hoping to have more of an update on that by Monday. I'm hoping on Monday's news, I can give you a little bit more information on what we can expect here. So these are positive movements for us. The deep state is planning on some kind of something or other on the 28th and something else on the January 1st and possibly something on Christmas. What those things are, I have no idea. I'm assuming it thinks it's going to kill the Christ again, meaning kill the crystalline energy on this planet. I highly doubt that's going to happen in any way, shape, or form. Where there's birth and then there's death. I don't think their death machines got much of a leg to stand on at this point. But they're still trying to see if they can get an infection going here, trying to see if they can get something done. And most of it's being done in the hologram, and it's not really affecting us too bad as of this morning. So I'm hoping that continues. That's all the best I can hope for. And really between now and then, I could say if there was something you were going to do to help the situation, really live in the moment. Meaning you only have so much time with your families. We're all busy. We all lead busy lives. And I do hope that you're enjoying some positive, joyful moments with everyone this holiday season. I do hope that there are, you do take time to just be, live in the moment, live with Source, maybe reach out, spend a little time with Source this season. And the more you live in the moment and not in the future and worry about tomorrow or think about yesterday and things you forgot or, things you did that you maybe felt weren't quite right. Don't go backwards, don't go forwards, just be present in the moment and in the now. Because if you're present in the now, reaching out to Source is going to be a lot easier for you because he is in the now. Everything is in the now when it comes to Source. So try to take some time for yourself. I know that's kind of the pot calling the kettle black over here, but you don't have to fight this part of the battle. Just try to keep that Source energy anchored as much as possible. Don't allow for any kind of negativity to disrupt that connection. I know that people can become a little crazy this time of year, especially since we're getting down to the wire and everybody's probably throwing stuff at each other in the toy store at this point. But God, my toy days are pretty much over here. So, but try and just remember that if you allow that to get to you, it's going to allow to lower your vibration. And if it lowers your vibration, then you're not a very good anchor for Source right now. And that's the most important thing you as a celestial and as a creator can do right now in order to ensure that we can finally rid the universe of this thing. And hopefully this is the last bit of quote unquote power that the deep state actually has. So remember, if you can do anything over this weekend, and I know it's not easy for some of you, and I know everybody's got that, person from the family that you wish didn't come to the family gathering and all that stuff. But just remember, your job as a celestial is to anchor that light and stay focused on Source and stay focused on the reunion and all of the positive things that are happening between now and the end of the year. I'm sure we're going to make it through this. We've made it through a lot worse as humans and as a human race. But try and do your part, and I'm sure Source will appreciate that. I know I certainly do. And as for the rest of this, battle continues today. It's solstice. Let's better get back to work here and clean up what they've got going on at this moment and see what's next. See what it throws at us next until I can finally get to the base root of wherever it's coming from. So I'm pretty sure we kind of know where that is at this point. On that note, I hope you have a lovely rest of your weekend, and I will see you on Monday.